Welcome back to Dealing with the Devils. It's Jack here, and Duke just played, I'd say, their worst game of the season against Southern. They came out definitely flat in this game, coming off the big game against Michigan State. And before we get too far, I just want to apologize. They are working on our sound booth here in the background. Right, JD?
Yes, that would be that background noise as they are reconstructing it. I'm trying to step over the equipment, but I think we can still get this in.
I think so. So, what was your big takeaway from this game against Southern? Give me your just overall thoughts.
Overall thoughts is that this team is so good that they can overcome a really bad night statistically. 4 for 20 from the three-point line, 65% from the free throw line, which is really unlike Duke teams.
And before you go further, that has been a concern of yours from the beginning of the season. And opposed to the three-point number, which I think will fluctuate, obviously Grayson's not going to shoot 0 for 6 every night, and it's really dependent on him. But those free throw numbers are definitely going to be a concern throughout the season.
No question about it, Jack, because when Duke is at its best, when they win the championships, you always had confidence when the other team had a foul in order to get the ball back, that you were sending guys to the free throw line that were shooting 80-something%. You know, whether it was Tyus and Quinn at the last championship, you knew you were happy that we were at the free throw line. Right now, I'm wondering if this is something that is going to come back to haunt us when we get to the tournament.
Yeah, even just last season between Tatum, Kennard, and Allen, you had a great deal of confidence that they would finish out the game and shoot their free throws efficiently. Now, the other thing I want to point out here is that, you know, while Duke did struggle in this game, the difference between this Duke team and the two Duke teams of the past 4 or 5 years or so is whereas those teams were reliant on the three-point shot, and granted they had much better three-point shooters than this current Duke team, this team is founded truly in their defense. And so really the old adage is that defense doesn't take nights off. And while you'd love if that was true, this is still a college team, and so I think there could be times at the season where they are, but because of that length, the athleticism, and the ability that they have to switch to the 2-3 zone, which has been so effective early on in the season, I think their defense will continue to be so good. And 60 points is nothing to laugh at. To hold another team to 60 points is a good night on the defensive end of the court.
And not only is the defense solid, you have a very unusual thing in the size of this Duke team. I can't recall a team like this where the starting five has two bigs that are just incredible. So when everything else isn't working, they are going to put up double-doubles of rebounds and points. And coming off the bench are two players that are also 7 feet tall. This is a big team.
Yeah, and let's get into that starting five. And Wendell Carter had the big night. I'll let you get into Wendell, but Marvin Bagley, I think his best play right now is where he shoots his own shot, misses it, gets the follow, and then either dunks it or lays it in. I think that's been his best offense early in the season, and part of the reason, you know, his rebounding numbers have been tremendous. His motor, though, I think has been the thing that's jumped out to me the most. As a guy who is the number one player in the class, you don't necessarily expect him to play with a tremendous motor, and he does it every play. This guy just doesn't stop moving. He's constantly just repositioning on the offensive end, moving throughout the court, and on defense, his ability to switch out onto guards, and the quickness of his feet, the way he moves for a guy who's 7 feet tall is just not normal.
Well, and let's put it this way, that he is his own point guard. Because What you're suggesting, and I agree with you, is that there are times it's almost as if he just shoots the ball and then he's there to follow it up. He knows where it's going almost.
Right.
He's ready to follow it up. But this is, we know that the NBA is moving in this direction of big guys who can shoot three-pointers. who can dribble the ball.
This is a tricky beat.
I am just stunned by his capacity to bring the ball up. He can shoot from the outside.
Yeah.
The only thing at the moment that is a little suspect, and I think it's going to come along, is his free throw.
Yeah, and to me, the thing is, how's the shot look, right? And Bagley's shot looks good. It's smooth. It comes up nice over the left shoulder. There's a little bit, it could be a little bit a higher release point, but it looks nice. It has a good rhythm to it, and so therefore, it will develop. It will improve as time goes on. But let's talk about Wendell Carter, because he was the man of the night. 20 points, 11 rebounds, 6 blocks. The guy has been an eraser early on this season, the eraser for the Blue Devils, and has just been tremendous rebounding the ball. They don't run almost anything for him, and he just somehow ends up getting the ball on the offensive glass, or he finds a way to just create an opening for himself and score efficiently.
I mean, when the Bigs will score 39 points and have 22 rebounds between the two of them, you almost know that you can get away with a bad night shooting three-pointers, a bad night at the free throw line. It is so much fun to watch the two of them pass to each other over the defense.
Yeah.
They are electric.
Yeah, they have a great in and out post game where one of them's up top and one of them posts up.
Yes.
And they really like passing to each other. That's been something that has been very apparent early on this season. They're very comfortable giving it to one another in the low post, high post area. But let's
move over to Trey Duval.
Yes, please. That's where I was going.
Let's face it. The first 3 games, what was he averaging? Like 10 assists a game. I don't think he got to double digits last night.
Only 4.
Nonetheless, we have a true point guard again, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would agree. People are going to look at the box score and say 10 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. He had a down night. And sure, it wasn't as good as his earlier games. But just because he had 4 assists doesn't mean he didn't have a command of the offense, didn't move the ball well. I think he had a solid performance. It just wasn't as good as his previous ones. But
it was a wonderful play when he drove to the basket and you thought he was going to look to lay it in, and he's got a lot of style as he attacks.
Yes, he does.
Dished it back out to Grayson, who then went underneath and laid it in. Very unselfish. Brought other people into the play. A true point guard.
Yeah, he's very cognizant of the players behind him. I think that's something that you don't necessarily see a lot. Lots of guys put their head down when they're driving to the basket. Duval doesn't. He does that, but he's aware of the guys who are behind him at all times, and so he's able to make those kind of behind the back or type passes. Especially in the transition game, as the pass you're talking about was. Now, lastly, let's finish out the top 5 before we move into the bench and our predictions here for the next game against Furman. Really quickly here, Gary Trent Jr., he had another down game shooting last night, but he did rebound the heck out of the ball. 10 rebounds for Trent.
When's the last time you remember a box score with 3 guys with double-digit rebounds?
I can't say I've ever. I don't ever remember a Duke team ever having 3 guys with 10 rebounds. And Trent, honestly, while he didn't shoot the ball well, he always seemed to be in the right place last night. Just around the ball, just was always in the right spot last night. So he only had 8 points and he shot 3 of 11, 2 of 6 from the three-point line. Excuse me, but. While the shot wasn't going down, he was still playing as a good team player. Now, to the bench here, really, you got...
But you left out our boy.
Oh, Grayson?
Yeah.
Well, I figured we talked about him a little bit, but go ahead.
So here's the thing. After that thing of beauty, watching the Michigan State game, which, if you're a Duke hater, I think we served you up another wonderful gift, because Grayson was a thing of beauty that night. I think it's hard to come off of a 37-point game against the number 2 team in the country, national television, and be able to replicate it the next night. So it wasn't his best game, but he also didn't do do anything to hurt us. And there was one thing in particular that I loved when there was not a technical foul, but a hard foul on him.
Right.
And his reaction to it
he
was under control. A very good sign. That's probably the most important thing I saw last night.
Right, where the Southern defender wrapped him up with both arms. Definitely wasn't a basketball play, but he was under control for sure. So let's quickly move into the bench here. You had 4 guys who really played any type of meaningful minutes last night. You had Delorier, who looked solid again, but he works incredibly hard. He's a tremendous athlete. It's just the ball skills that are going to take time to develop. And so therefore, defensively, he's going to be in rebounding much more ahead of his offense. Bolden, I thought, looked okay last night. He had a couple of good moments, but he hasn't really developed the way that I think Duke had thought he would. And then the freshman, backup freshman, right? You got Jordan Goldwire and Alex O'Connell, who have both, they've looked good. They look like guys who are going to be fun to watch over the next 3 or 4 years as they develop. O'Connell in particular looks poised to be in the actual rotation when they get into ACC play, in my opinion. He's just a guy who he does all the little things right. He's in the right spots, and it's not going to be this year, but over the summer, when he's able to put on some weight, I think it's going to help him a lot in terms of his ability to just score more easily and be more confident on both ends of the court.
Then Jack White got in the game for a little bit, and did Frank make it?
He did. He got a minute in there early on.
So, even the fact, Jack, that we're talking about the bench is a change from Duke teams in the past.
I don't agree with you. I know you keep saying this, but it's still early. We're still in November here, and Coach K does play these guys in November. If this is still the case in January, in February, yes, tell me then. But until we get to that time of the season, this is what he typically does.
I don't know. My memory, which as we know isn't always perfect here, which is what makes the show so much fun, is that I think he really likes to solidify around that smaller rotation early on. And maybe what my problem is that last year there were 3 guys that he wanted to play that were injured. And as a result of that, there were more people there. And then as soon as he could work them back in, the bench had less time. But I think we're seeing a change. We're seeing a change with the use of the 2-3 zone. We're seeing a greater use of players so that maybe they don't feel as disenfranchised as other players did who wanted to transfer. And I think maybe we are seeing the beginning of a trend. But you're right. Let's see what happens when ACC play starts.
Okay, so JD, let's wrap this up. Give me one thought and your prediction for the Furman game.
Okay. I think Grayson goes off again. I think he's going to be itching for it, and he's going to be looking to get back with a game that's got him in the 20s. And I see this game, Coach K giving them a real talking to, because there were lots of things to criticize, and I think you're going to see a 40-point blowout.
Yeah, I'm going in the same path here. I think Grayson rebounds. I think the offense as a whole rebounds. They're going to put up 95 points. I think the final score, 95-63 Duke over Furman. And the Blue Devils look better. They look back to being that number 1 type team, the team that beat Michigan State.
I got the score at 90-50, but that's a wrap. I'm JD.
And that was Dealing with the Devils.